started to just call myself C. So I've been making music for the last 2 decades now, at least. So this project I want to show you. As I said, there will be lots of sort of little product hints and tips within my track deconstruction. So I'm going to do a track deconstruction of a song which is not released yet. I got the feeling there's a lot of bass music lovers in Hyderabad, so I chose, even though it was, I'm actually producing all kinds of music, but then I'm playing quite often tons of bass music, and this one is like sort of a dancehall thing. So let's listen to the song first, and then we'll take it apart. And when we take it apart, whenever a question comes up, just ask it straight away, because otherwise you'll forget. And that's what we're gonna do.
Organized, new mix, new blend, no we not compromise. Never take note, now we did it and I make nice. Them can't stop the works, and them on my size. Them no big like me, them no bad like the ride. We not watch face and we not take side, cause we don't walk the road and we don't ride it tight. When all said and done, money the strong survive. So we not run, better know so we not hide. We can't done, better know so we not lie. So look on the rhythm and me chat to think time. You know we have to make it tricky, hustle and grind. Worldwide, this a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring. Dance all night on the ride the rhythm, man. Worldwide, this a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring. Dance all night on the ride the rhythm.
Papolah ko siya, kusuolah ko iya. Iasa ka na tinggal, panyuwa ko siya. Papolah ko siya, kusuolah ko iya. Iasa ka na tinggal, panyuwa ko siya. Coming like a light in the dark, my wings spinning, no doubt. Got the world corrupt, when my feathers go off with the heads, Go up, stay sharp with a blunt. Dirty wine, daddy cushions up a Kingston. I'ma fuck with the world, that's the game plan. Run things like I never sleep. Living dreams lay up in the trees. Don't get too close, you will get roast, you will get toasted.
Worldwide is a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring. Dance all night on the ride the rhythm, man. Worldwide is a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring. Dance all night on the ride the rhythm.
Worldwide is a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring. Dance all night on the ride the rhythm. Worldwide is a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring. Worldwide is a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring.
Ride the shit.
Worldwide is a global thing. Make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we a bring.
Good vibes.
Whoa.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, maybe I'll start first to just sort of take it apart a bit. First of all, this is the arrangement view in Ableton Live. I know most of you know, but I always just want to point that out, that there's also this, as we call it, a session view, where it's a lot more sort of non-linear music approach, little musical ideas housed in these boxes, which then sort of here can run in a non-linear way, so it doesn't have a beginning or end, so to say. And then once we want to sort of finish the song and bring it into final production, we bring the song over, or the elements of the song over, into the arrangement view, where we have a clear beginning and a clear end. And then we also, in Live 10, we now have sort of the ability to have sort of groups within groups of sort of track elements. So I have this group called Beat, and now I just soloed this beat group And just want to show sort of in the very beginning when the song starts. So I have like this heavy low cut here in the very beginning, and then in automation, when the drop comes, like the EQ goes off and sort of I have a full beat here. And what I'm also using here in this beat group is a device which we released in Live 10, which is called Drum Bus, which allows me to sort of, it's like sort of my drum shaping tool, my one-stop drum shaping tool nowadays. What I can do here, I can just play around with distortion, you know, soft, medium, hard distortion, bring in compression, then play with the transients. So a transient is where sort of my sample starts from 0 dB. That's that sort of, let's say a kick, like that's like that first moment of the kick would be the transient. So I can sort of reduce or increase the amount of transients which are detected in the beat, which then makes it sort of crispier, I guess, you know. Then here crunch is basically also there, like it brings in sort of some high distortion and crunch. But the most interesting thing in this drum bus is actually how easy it is to tune your low ends with this. So here on this right side we have sort of one knob says boom. That's just the amount of low ends, and then frequency allows me to literally dial into the frequency of my low ends. It then also tells me here the scale of the frequency of my low ends, which can be like super helpful if I know what my bass line, what the whole song is written in. I can just bring my low ends right to that position, and you will have a much cleaner mix down. And this was a very hideous thing in the past. Like in order to tune your low ends, especially like the subs, what you had to do sometimes is you had to like cut all the subs away from this, let's say from the kick drum, for example, and then you had to play the right tone with maybe a sub bass instrument, and then you put that under your sort of kick, so that you could like basically you had to create a completely new kick kind of to tune your low ends. And now I'm just gonna sort of play around here with it, but you'll see. So you could hear like, it's like literally dialing through the low ends. And then of course it helps a lot to have a tiny little decay function here, which will just allow me to just take away the length, the decay of my low ends, which again will help me to clean things up a bit. So in this group of beat elements, I have also, as I mentioned, the ability to have then subgroups, which just gives me an ability, like I'm just gonna jump straight to a sort of a group within a group. So within this group of beat stuff, I have a group which is called claps. If I solo this, I guess there's a couple of claps in here. Yeah, it's like three different claps elements running, you know. And what I'm doing here is, again, I just threw in because this drum bus is just such a sort of, as I said, one-stop solution for many things, not just drum-related things. Just throw it on your vocals, throw it on your bass, throw it on anything. Misuse the effects, you know. It's just like a little, you know, a little hint, you know, like maybe you want to use it for drums. So here, sort of my claps are running again through like its own drum bus, to just like give a little bit of distortion, like especially like when a song is really finished. Like I'm a person who needs to like hear pretty much the song I want needs to be while I'm producing the song. I can't like write a song, like some people are able to sort of write chord progressions and everything with sort of very mediocre sounding instruments, and then later they're like, now let's look at the color of my instruments. For me, it needs to be kind of like what it is in order for me to write music, because I'm a self-taught musician. I have a bit of music theory, but everything just comes from my ears. So it's very important for me to be fast with like, this, especially claps and stuff. If they also have a bit of distortion going on, it helped me a lot to just throw in something very fast we like to stay in a flow state of mind, right? That's why later, and when we're like done with my track deconstruction and stuff, and we're just like chatting in a one-on-one situation, I'm more than happy to also show some folks like what we can do with the push controller. This is the push 2 over there. So that's like my go-to instrument in writing music. So everything is sort of in my hands. And I don't need to use sort of the laptop so much. Sometimes it's literally for music making also kind of closed, so I can literally focus on sort of my hands and my ideas. This percussion track. So this is the MIDI track to it. I'm just gonna close some stuff here. Doesn't look like it sounds, right? Or I mean, it's just basically like, what can you tell? What's going on here? This never works. like what can putting people on the spot. So what I did here is I'm going to turn this MIDI effect off here, which is called arpeggiator. When I turn this off, this is how my percussion sounds. Basically, everything is coming at the same time, and that's what you were able to see here, right? Like a wood sound shaker and all these things, just right on the one, boom, and sort of the whole groove of the percussion is all done with this arpeggiator. Again, normally arpeggiators are used on synth lines and stuff, but in the end, it just creates a pattern of MIDI notes. So why not use it on, beat elements itself? It brings in an element of probability. Sort of, I didn't have that sort of in my mind before I said like, let's throw in some percussion. I just threw in like a drum rack, or in this case, it's an impulse, with these sounds. And again, I wanted something fast, and I wanted to surprise myself. Most things in my songs are really based on just coincidence and probability. And yeah, so all I'm doing here is I'm playing around with the ratio, sort of like of the repetition, so to say, or and what else? That's it, actually. Yeah, it's only like if you see here. But then in the whole beat, it sounds like.
Go watch, stay sharp with a blunt. Dirty wine, daddy, put yourself like Kingston. I'ma fuck with the world, that's the game plan.
I've never played that,
Off with the head.
Yeah, I love my delays. So yeah, that's like a really fun moment in this beat because, as I said, I surprised myself. And those are always the best moments. Next thing in this song is probably I'm like just jumping to the more interesting parts. I would say let's go look at the bass line. So the bass line in the end is actually 3 bass lines all together, and we're just gonna hear it solo. Again, it's in a group. Again, I'm using a drum bass on this, just to clean up the low ends a bit, and like work a little bit with sort of the amount of boom, like without. Sounds like this, so less compression, less aggressive. Convolution. So one of the bass is just a pure sub. This sub also runs into a convolution reverb. Convolution reverb is a Max for Live device. Who's familiar with Max for Live? Okay, see, there's already less people. That's cool. I actually get something to share. So Max for Life is based on Max, which is a software created by Cycling 74, which is now owned by Ableton. And Max for Live allows you to basically create your own devices, but also it allows you to use other people's devices. And this device is actually a free, amazing reverb, and it's based on sort of real and also non-real or artificial places. So here you can see like real places, and it would have like sort of canyons or churches or famous. So it emulates the actual room or the actual space of these places. And that's what I'm using here on the subs. And then it has another bass. And then the third one, the third one I'm using actually a wavetable. So who of you is on Live 10? Okay, so half the room. So in Live 10 we released this beast here. It's a wavetable synthesizer. So wavetable synthesis in general was not invented by Ableton, was invented by Waldorf in the, I guess, 90s. So Depeche Mode at some point, I think they had like several excess viruses, which is like a sort of a hardware wavetable synthesizer on stage. And it's cool to name especially that band, like this whole like these very atmospheric pad sounds. That's all wavetable synthesis. So this is a wavetable, and what we are doing in wavetable synthesis, we're going through sort of, it's also called wavetable lookup synthesis or something like that. We're basically going through the positions of this wavetable here, of this thing. So this is an oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and then there's also actually not so prominent, but there's a third oscillator here, which is just dealing with the subs. And in this particular sound, it's sort of like a basic shapes wavetable, and then already a little bit more sophisticated look here. We can also actually like choose lots of different wavetables here, yeah.
New styles, new trends, get organized, new mix, new blend, no we not compromise. Never take note, carry the day and I make nice. Them can't stop the works.
And I even threw the drum bass on the vocals. Again, yeah, give it a bit of distortion. Just all sounds fun in the mix. And if you go through, like I'm using this auto filter just at the very beginning, I think. It's like the telephone version. You know?
New styles, new trends, get organized, new mix, new blend, no we not compromise. Never take note, carry the day and I make nice. Them can't stop the works, cause them are not my size. Them no big like me, them no.
This one is just some like little ad-lib stuff, so I didn't do anything to it. It was just so tiny stuff. The next ad-lib track here, I did sort of something which is advisable. Like it didn't need to have any low ends. So if you really want to like make sure that the bass line and your kicks are like doing the work when it comes to the bass in the song, it makes sense to even go into your hi-hats, like they might have a little bit of low ends too, so you like throw in. This is also like this was released with 10.1, so our sort of current state of software is like 10.1. So in 10.1 we came with channel EQ, which is something a bit there's the EQ8, and then there was like this normal EQ just with like So this one is a very musical, very easy to use, beautiful EQ, and it has, even when you use it on push, it has a beautiful visualization. So the whole frequency range, you see it there, and whatever you do also changes the frequency picture straight away. So it's very intuitive to work with it. It's like just for the chorus.
Worldwide is a global thing, make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes,
we are bring
dance all night, yeah, we ride the rhythm. Worldwide is a global thing, make we link up all of my queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes, we are bring dance all night, yeah, we ride the rhythm.
Tick, 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 tick. So it's like a lot, and then it's like really panned out. I even did sort of the whole split stereo thing, which we have since Live 10. So it's not just your panning. We can now really decide how much percentage should go to the right side, yet still keep it quite prominent. Like so, you're able to create a much nicer stereo picture. And so what I did is with like all these ad libs, I have like something a little bit more straight, more to the right side, to the left side, a little bit in the middle. So it's fun on headphones basically. And usually I sort of ask to, and she has worked with me for so many years, so she knows that I want some like a little bit of Mickey Mouse sound, and then there's some low, and like so is. There's this version.
Sing some pure good vibes, we are bring dance all night, yeah, we ride the rhythm.
A few different sort of layers.
Worldwide is a global thing, we link up all.
And in the end, like actually, I must say, in the very first chorus when that comes in, it's not even so crazy prominent that she's there. That kind of still puts a surprise when she actually comes in and has her own part.
Worldwide is a global thing, make we link up.
She's there, but she kind of like headphone material again.
Worldwide is a global thing, make we link up. All of my queens and kings, sing some pure good vibes, we are bring.
And then comes her. So this is Sarawakian, her native language.
Polako siya gusto olah ko inga giasa kena tinggal panyo ko sial papolah ko siya gusto olah ko inga giasa kena tinggal panyo ko sial. Coming like a light in the dark, my wings spin big, no doubt. Got the world corrupt.
Heavy compression on the vocals somehow. I'm sure some like guys of you like are real sophisticated audio engineers. They're like, oh my god. But you know, all doesn't matter. I'm releasing music. Yeah, again, like just made sure that I cut the low ends of the vocals. But it was a pretty good studio anyway, so I didn't have to do too much to the. And the compression is also not that heavy actually, just a bit. And then you always hear a lot of activity from the echo, which is also released with Live 10, and is a beautiful delay, a mix of a sort of classic sort of space echo-like, Roland space echo-like delay, but also when it comes to modulation and characteristic of, possibilities in here, you can go extremely deep with it. Meaning that you can like bring in more additional noise. You can create sort of this like wobble things on the delay itself, or then even go in with sort of like a LFO to also just make it modulate a bit. And then this is sort of like the time tunnel. When you bring in the feedback, you will see it looks a bit like Tron or something. And when you see it and listen to it, let's see here.
Asa kena tinggal panyo ko sial papolah ko sial gusto olah ko inga gi asa kena tinggal panyo ko sial. Coming like a light in the dark, my wings.
And this kind of stuff happens also at the very beginning.
Are a bird.
All these are then automations.
Ha ha. We fly fly.
And if you don't watch out, you can easily destroy your speakers. There's no problem. I've done that in the past many times, but I'm not going to show you today. Okay. yeah, but this echo, I really love it. Like it's also then again, if we look at it on the push, it has a beautiful visualization. Everything is there on that little display. You can work on your sort of your frequency picture here down here when you open that up. You can also, just like at the classic space echo, you can bring in some reverb straight away. You don't have to like link these left and right. You can unlink them so that like maybe the right side has a completely different repetition going on. So it's a very complex, beautiful delay, which I probably use in pretty much every song. Yeah. Okay, I think that's kind of, or maybe, yeah, that's kind of it. That's the song. And it's kind of at a stage where I'm really happy with the mix down, but I always give my work to trusted sound engineers. This one hasn't been mastered yet because I still have also some work to do with it. Like, don't even know how I want to release it. I wouldn't mind doing this with a small Asian label. In general, like if you look at it, there's a lot of MIDI stuff happening in here, but then at the same time there's also like full-on audio clips, where, as you can see, if you know what these yellow things are, these are sort of the anchor points for my warping. So and where do I get these things from? I have huge sort of sample libraries. Some are probably even like 20 years old, or like you just carry this stuff around with you. But obviously also I make heavy use of packs. So here under packs you can see sort of all the packs I own. The beauty thing here with Live 10 is now sort of, I can see here now, obviously since I'm employed by Ableton, I have another 110 available packs to download. A few other things here about this browser. I also make heavy use of what we call up here collections. So these collections are completely user changeable, so to say. Like, so I named them C's favorite instruments, things I always need. Well, I'm working on another project right now, which is like I'm doing sound for a really cool animation. After this, I would like to show you. So then we also see sort of like video within Ableton Live. But this is really fun because what you can do here is see what some of these things here in this folder here, which is called Alet, my friend's name, are audio files. Some are like devices, could be an instrument, could be an effect. It really doesn't matter, and that's a cool way to go through a huge library, especially if you are in a situation like me where you can literally like download every pack you want. Then you're like in a big trouble of having way too much to choose from. So that maybe on a day where you don't actually are in the mood to write music, but you still have ears, right? Like you could probably still decide whether you like a certain instrument or not, whether you like a certain loop. So you go through your library, through your sounds, through whatever, and then just with a right click onto whatever it is, you can then say, okay, let's throw this also here, and you know, so throw it into this Live 10 launch thing here now. So here, like during like Live 10 launch, I was just sort of building something on the spot. This was like a very challenging, very stupid thing to do, but sometimes it worked. But so to be fast, like I had my folder here where I had like just like 4 or 5 things I always wanted to use to do something on the spot with push in front of a crowd for 15 minutes. So yeah, these collection folders help a lot. And in general, yeah, this browser changed a lot over the years. And then you have your separate folders for. I don't have many VST or like audio unit plugins. Mainly only nowadays I work a lot with chord, Captain Chord plugins. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Pops up in your Facebook thing. Like I think they had a heavy funding or so. So the way this works. I use it for chord progression, so just throw captain chords in here, and then you choose the scale you want to work in, and then you could literally also say, can go to this folder here and just choose a chord progression, and now you already have a chord progression. In the end, in my eyes, if you learned music theory, you're technically also just going back to a server. It's not you who. It's just knowledge you have, so to say. I'm like bashing you now. Like it's nothing. Look at me. But so to say, like what this does is, it's like constantly, like I think the servers in Canada, and you have to be online to use it. But then in the end, it's all up to me what my chord progression sounds like, the rhythm I take for it. So in the end, I feel if I would have had all that music theory, I would be at the same spot right now. But I believe it's good to give people as much power as possible in order to create something. In the end, at no point I feel like, oh, it's their chord progression in my music, because this is a Western scale. As I meant, like it's you didn't invent that either, Fun. Then you can go and create melody runs very easily. But as I said, in the end, it used to take me ages to write chord progressions, and of course I do it a bit slower than I did it just now, right? I would still be like, is it really? So just to feel like. But it helps me a lot, and then in the end, I can just take that MIDI file and obviously choose my own instruments and give it that color and everything I want. Another plugin from this family is called Mixed in Keys. This is the studio edition. So what this does is, it also needs to be connected and like.
Worldwide is a global thing, make we global, all of me queens and kings. Sing some pure good vibes we are bring. Dance all night on the ride in the ring, man. Worldwide is a global thing, make we link up all of me.
So, with this song, it's not so clear, but it seemed to be it's able to tell me what scale I'm in, and that's super helpful for me, because I might write something just kind of like weird sounds, and then I throw a Mixed in Keys plugin on there, and I'll just go through. I don't need to throw it on the master track as I did now to analyze sort of the notes and what keys are used. I could also then just go through all the elements in the song, and maybe the bass line was really something weird, which is totally probability case, and I can then figure out like, oh, that's why the song sounds so muddy. Here I have a problem, and then I can clean that up, and that's something which took me again like ages. So in the end, it's all about just letting you write music as fast or like as well as possible. So yeah, that's sort of a little. But this whole thing, this plugin Mixed in Keys, the studio edition is sort of for your digital audio workstation, and then they have also the version for DJs, and that's what like Tiesto and Co uses to create these sort of stadium DJ sets where it's like basically the whole DJ set is a chord progression, and you're like, oh yeah, oh my god, and then you're like, Tiesto is so amazing, and then you're like, like this. They all use it. Like, of course, makes it a lot faster, right? So it analyzes your songs, and then you can like look at your sort of scales and just be like, yeah, it would make sense to go from here to there. It's so fun. Yeah. So all the characters in the animation are sort of based on these Malaysian ghosts, and when he said let's do music for this cartoon. I have done some stuff sort of in Ableton Live And the first and only other thing I've done, apart from little tiny experiments with video, was a big production for like a commercial production, which was like I think half an hour long. So it was a very big project and very confusing, like because it's so long and it has so many different elements. And I decided, okay, look, the way we should do this, we shouldn't just sit in front of it and sort of make music, like watch it and be like, you know, on this part we should have this, and hey, maybe we should, like, so it didn't want us to play actually sort of to the video, you know, like an orchestra, like syncing a production. So what I rather did is, like, I saw the material for a while, I was like, cool, I get it, and made some notes, like, we should have, like, also, you don't need, in the end, so much music in an animation. Like, I just compared a few of our favorite animations, like Adventure Time and like Rick and Morty and all these things. And I was like, in the end, there's like certain scenes where there is a bit of music, but other than that, they're just talking, and there's special effect sounds. So I decided what we should do is, even though he's not really a musician, plays a bit of bass, but it's just a very creative guy. So what we usually do is he brings a lot of great food and booze to my place in the jungle, and he basically also just paid me with food and booze and some greens, broccoli and things, and spinach, and then we just made music in a very goofy way. I can show you a few of our sort of files. So I thought it's much better to have a catalog of stuff which is all kind of in the realms of this animation project, and then sort of the editor can just grab it, you know, like, okay, maybe I have some ideas, but I'm also not sort of married to these sounds. I'm just like, look, here's a whole folder. We made a lot of goofy stuff. Just have fun, you know, knock yourself out. Here. Okay, so let's turn it a little bit. We luckily, when he only made sort of the initial thing where this thing comes, like I made one thing for him in this very fast manner. That had this kind of surfer sound feeling with a bass line, and then I decided, let's take that as the theme and just like rewrite it over and over again with different instruments, space it out, make it faster, slower. So here's just a few. It's always that theme. And like they're all like that, basically. Boom, 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 boom. Even this is technically still the same chord progression. That's my youngest. They all have to be in there. Like, I've written a lot of songs where the kids are in. I have 2 kids. One is 3, one is 8. And yeah. Here, even in the background, like the high voice is my oldest, and the low voice is Aled. He's literally 20 voices in this animation. It's all him. That's his whistling. That's him and me.
3 big steps.
Yeah, so yeah, and then it's just like a whole folder of a lot of stuff, and then in the end, that's why sort of in this file will not be much MIDI. I think that could be very confusing, especially if the time code keeps changing. So I feel it's a lot easier for video synchronization. There I can just drop them in. I don't have to actually play them or make them. You know, so that's all the special effect sounds. and then in the actual file is, I think, the talking. No, here. There's a few sounds already in there, but that's where the vocals are, like all the. Yeah, and then I just pass the whole, again, the sort of the bounced audio back to the editor, and the job is done.
So you don't use much of third-party plugins or something?
No, as you saw, actually nothing really. Yeah, nothing really. Only this Captain chords. Yeah, nothing. Yeah, I used to, but then I'm just now very happy with what I get from sort of Ableton native. But they're not all. I mean, they're also done by other companies, right? They're just sort of sold within the Ableton shop, you know. But I just rely on that. Like, I feel like less in the end. If you just master like a few things, it makes me very happy. And like it's literally so many different things right now that I don't think it sounds all the same. Let's say. And then this develops. But yeah, in the end I feel right now I'm very happy with sort of I'm very productive right now.
All the effects in that track is only from Ableton?
Yeah, yeah. And not just the effects, no, even all the devices or whatever, every sound giving element in that song is from Ableton Live. What I do now again, I bought a little mixing board, but it's just a tiny one, because as I described in the very beginning, I come from sort of sound system culture. I was the guy on the mixer. I had back then it was a 16-channel Mackie, and I would run sort of the reverb and the delays through that Mackie mixer, and a bit of sort of vocals, you know, blah blah blah, blah. That's when I like sort of got to. That's when I fell in love with delays, especially, you know, and then with sort of feeding back into your delay, sort of feeding the actual delay sound back into the delay and starting to create like a repetition loop, you know. And lately I bought another like 12-channel Mackie mixer. I didn't have an outboard mixer for ages, and then I even found sort of my old this old Yamaha tiny sampler, and it even had all the old sound system samples still on there, and that's big fun, because now I just finished like a dub album. The sound system was called Al-Haka, so even now the project will be called CEE, but it's all over the track is like all the old Al-Haka samples, you know, Horace Andy saying Al-Haka, because we spent a lot of money back then on dub plates, right? So this is sort of the sound here.
Yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man, yeah, man. You know,
like it's, so yeah, like that's big fun now for me again. So it's like slightly outboard stuff, but not much really. Just a reverb, a delay, and then everything else comes from live.
Do you have anything on the master in your tracks, or do you leave the master clean generally?
It depends. Sometimes it can be an element of the song itself, but in general, I try to avoid to put too much on the master, just to make sure that the mastering engineer, and for example for this dub project, like heavily relied on this amazing mastering and doublets and mastering in Berlin. They've been sort of working with me for many years, very first album onwards, so like 20 years now. And I don't know if you know Rhythm and Sound, or so that's their studio. I mean, they're not together anymore, Mark Ernesto and Moritz from Oswald, but they started doublets and mastering. So I avoid having too much on it, because I know even if my mix, my pre-master, so to say, is very low, but it has beautiful dynamics, and I rather leave that. Also, my studio is half open, so my sound is not the best, you know. I work just to feel the low ends. I work with a sub pack, you know, this wearable subwoofer, and yeah. But as I said, like the room is partially open, so I always hear the jungle. It never shuts up. It's like the different phases of the day is louder and less loud. Yeah, so nothing on the master, unless it's a sound-giving thing, you know, like heavily compressed because I want that sound.
Actually, we make sound system music, like we just have a record label, and our specification is to make sound system music, and we know it is mono style. Is there any how different it is to make stereo kind of music to mono kind of?
I would say your biggest hurdle is always playing around with stereo bass, you know, especially when you're cutting to vinyl. And you will know, but does the rest in the room know why it would be a problem to have a stereo bass when you're cutting vinyl?
Yeah.
Please tell.
It's because the needle will jump, especially in the low end.
Why?
Because of the movement. Because of the
Too much distortion.
There's too much difference between the left and right side.
But to really understand, you just have to say the groove is like this, right? And the needle is sitting in this groove, and the bass is down here. So the groove would then need to be like this, or like this. So yeah, the bass is at the bottom, and then the sides, that's where left and right is, and that's why we have to make sure that we are clean in a sort of mono. But you can play around with it. You can like, even in that bass line, what I had there, there's sort of what, like, I'm having like where I had all the delays on that stuff. On there was like, I didn't really have much bass in that, so it's like the lower one thing was just for the real low ends, and there was mono. There was a second one which gave it a bit more sort of an attack, and the third one was adding some sort of stuff at the top. But it was all part of that bass line. But I just made sure that that stuff at the top doesn't have actually any low ends, but it's still part of that bass line, so to say. That's a trick I learned from my friend Fono, who played also India a couple of times. He releases on labels like B Pitch Control, used to be on 50 Weapons by Mode Selector, and yeah, like he does that quite a lot. So it sounds like a stereo bass, but it's not. It's just sort of one element of the bass line.
Actually, it is one of the sort of good additions, I think, from Live 10.
Utilities.
Yes, in utility where they've given that bass mono.
Yeah.
So you can just mono out only the low frequencies and still have your bass stereo. Sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here we have our utilities. And now it's very easy to just say bass mono, the frequency, you know. Then you can also just only tune in and hear that. So that's only the bass. And you can make sure that that's mono. And that's then super fast to do, right? You could like just write music, and then at the end you just be like, oh, it's sound system music. So then you just, you know, can be, so you don't have to like, I have to remember.
And another question, like back in the day the dub was very analog, and now everything is digital. But the one track you played more like sounds.
It sounds like it, yeah. Yeah.
But authentically, what is the way between analog, pure analog style to completely digital style?
Well, in my opinion, it's all music, right? So it doesn't really matter to me. First of all, it doesn't matter to me what the music is on. It's just a medium. Just like if you write a book, it's not about the paper, right? Like it's the story. So So in that sense, I'm in no way a purist. For some strange reason, I buy reggae on vinyl, but just because I like it. But it's not a sound question really. Like if you have a very good bit rate in your digital recording, it will sound way better than an analog, you know. But like a certain, like the sort of the frequency range of vinyl is just very pleasant. But it's not like the ultimate, you know. Like I could have a way better 32-bit file, like. But in the end, what you have to understand is like the world between digital and analog. In digital, we are just trying to emulate analog, and that's done by sort of the hertz and by especially by the bit rate. So you have to, the bit rate is a bit like pixels in a picture. So the finer the bits, sort of the closer your little blocks and steps are going to this very organic round wave, you know. So more steps will fit into your into this waveform, right? You're trying to become round, and as if the pixels get smaller and smaller, you're able to be pretty much round, but it's still square.
Could you show us something in Max for Life?
Yeah, by friends of mine called Skinner Box.
Yeah.
Really cool duo. They make a lot of devices, which some of them you have to buy, some of them are for free. So this one here is like a pregiator called Sting. So now I'm just gonna find a sound. So as you see up here should be my MIDI clips in here, or my audio clips. And there's nothing in here now. Yet it's playing a sequence because this thing here generates my sequences. So when I push the smiley face here, and you can also then, for example, this particular device, you can put it to transpose, so you can. Now I'm just transposing it, but then you can easily transpose it to the rest of your song. So it's a very complex looking thing. And when I open this here, starting Max Editor. Now this is the same device. Now it's opened in what is called Max, which is also a standalone program. But in Live 10, Max doesn't need to open anymore. In the past, when you were working and then you decided, because I'm just going to show you this website for Max for Live devices, and there's hundreds and hundreds of devices which are for free. You find like lots of, let's say, drum machines, and most of them actually all for free, you know. Oh, wow. So what especially when you have Live 10, suddenly Max for Live, which is sort of this sort of marriage between Ableton Live and Max, brings these devices into your Ableton environment. And so this is what the device looks. So it looks a bit similar to live stuff. Over here, this reverb is technically this. So it's a bit like Reason and stuff, where you like take an element which is decay and you combine that to, you know, like you're basically building your own device, and you have to like patch all these things together. But then you don't have to be in that nerdy world. You can just like use the device, but it's beautiful. Like there's beautiful tutorials, and you can just start making your own, maybe not as complex as this, but your own really cool devices. And there's a lot of great helpers, a lot of really cool stuff. For example, even the LFO from Max for Live is way better LFO than the native Ableton native LFO. So this LFO here can map up to 8 things. So the LFO could then maybe map here. This cutoff. You know? Now it's controlling the attack. It starts to then, you know, like if I do 8 things already over here, it will become like it's sort of it's like alive, you know. It's just doing something constantly changing. Because I could have like also like I don't know endless LFOs which all have 8 mappable things, and it becomes then very complex, but cool also, you know.
Option where you let's say you did a bit of location recording in a space, and this you can get that impulse and use the dampage onto other let's say channels, so that how would you, is it easy to like kind of drag and drop an audio file, let's say from a Taj Mahal, and then recreate that?
You mean like this convolution stuff?
Yeah, how would you capture the dampage and the convolution from, if you have to have your own list of collections of convolution reverbs that you want to go on a mission?
Yeah.
Just capturing.
Actually, Skinnerbox, because it's a bit of a process still to show, but Skinnerbox lately had a special where they used the convolution reverb to
check the reverb in the room.
To clean up your room, to calibrate your room.
Okay.
So they recorded, then they threw it in here, and they created their own calibration function using the convolution reverb.
There's a link you're saying there.
Yeah, if you look on Skinnerbox Facebook, they have a beautiful, very simple tutorial where they did that. But yeah, that's a really cool thing to do. Like, do you guys, who's using some SoundWorks calibration for your studio?
I'm just using it more to read the response. I'm not really using it for. I'm just using it to get an idea of what the room is doing.
Okay.
Because I don't fully trust the.
You don't trust it.
Yes, I don't fully trust it.
But I think it's okay. You can trust it. It's pretty cool.
I think if your studio is at say 90% and you want to get that last 10%, this is with regards to the studio, not for headphone calibration. So if your studio is already at say 85-90%, you want to get the last 10%, then yes, sure. But if your studio isn't that good, your studio is at 50% and then you expect the software to do 50% of the job, I think that's a little far-fetched.
So it's this kind of mic. It then says you turn up your speakers and it sends this sweep. Don't turn it too loud, otherwise you'll destroy your ears. It will analyze then your room and then create these pictures, and you will see sort of where your room is like, stealing frequencies which are actually in the song, but you just can't hear them. And then, like, it's a beautiful thing. Actually the first time I saw it in action was with my friend's audio units from Bangalore, and they have a pretty nice studio already, but like the bass was so much better after this not very expensive thing. So it's not something crazy nerdy to do. Like, it's definitely something anyone should consider who's taking this music thing seriously. I think it's just 150 USD or something like that. And you only have to do it once, or you can then after that you just do it again to see whether it did what it's supposed to do. And then it's something which sits in your master, and you just have to make sure that when you bounce the song that you turn it off. Otherwise that frequency is then not there, But yeah, very cool thing to do. Well, it's been big fun. As I said, would be cool if you guys stick around or something. We can look at the push if anyone hasn't seen it yet. Thanks to WHR for having me. I'm sure we'll do more things, and these are good people, Trust me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then you can say capture, and even though I didn't record,
Cool.
also it detected my BPM. So And that's where real sort of idea creation happens, right? When you grab a guitar, you don't turn on the metronome and you start playing. You're just going to be sitting on the couch. You're going to be playing for different ideas, and that's how it works, right? Like that's how it works. Oh, it's really long because we're talking MIDI here. So you could probably be playing for about 20 minutes before before it stops. And then as soon as you, of course, change the track, so now even for this, and that's when also really funny numbers come about. Like suddenly your BPM is like 85.4, and you know, like then you can say like, okay, that doesn't need to be this funny note, so you bring it to a round note. But yeah, like the capture works per channel. So you're like on this, you're playing, press capture. If you don't have a push, you can of course use any other keyboard for this, and you're playing, and then it's just up here. This kind of symbol there, this is the capture symbol. Because we also call it record button fatigue, right? Like it can be that you're playing and you're like, oh, that was great. Now let's record. And you don't know like what you actually did, especially when you're somebody like me who like works a lot with